Both One South Africa Party leader Mmusi Maimane joins us now to share his views on the process that unfolded earlier on. A very good evening to you, Mr. Maimane. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Do you too share the views that Parliament has failed the rationality test, that it actually launched something but failed to support it, surely by the actions, the sentiment of its own membership, but the membership that we know largely belongs to the governing party?
Good evening, and good evening to fellow South Africans. Tonight really was an assault on our constitution. Effectively, what Parliament did today was to tell the people of South Africa that Section 89 will never see the light of day. No one today was voting whether the president should be impeached or not impeached. Today's vote should not have even existed because, in fairness, a parliament requested a report was put before it saying it must investigate. Citizens, the people of this country today, do not know where the money in Phala Phala came from, what the president's version of events are, and what a Section 89 committee would reveal that and give the opportunity to the president to present the NPA report, to present the SIU report, to prepare SARS, to prepare all documents so that South Africans know what their president has been up to. But today was an abortion of justice. And ultimately, it was a genuine demonstration that the Constitution will mean nothing to members of Parliament and that the oath they take to their party reigns supreme than that of the country. That's why today I really believe when push came to shove, the ANC members in their majority showed the people of this country that they cannot be trusted to protect the Constitution.
You've been part of a large political party before, and I'm curious, in decisions like this, where perhaps something goes against the grain of what you think your own personal values and principles are, but you also know that you are accountable to the constitution of a party and bound by its agreements. What would you have expected of those ANC, NEC members or parliamentary members? And I ask this against the backdrop of what Professor Kotso was saying earlier on, that part of the problem is not necessarily the party member behavior, but the National Assembly itself should have fine-tuned Section 89 to better understand how to navigate the space.
Well, two things really. The first is today should not have been a vote. The Constitution prescribes a vote only when it comes to vote on whether to impeach or not to impeach. And that's when, on that basis, it says a 2/3 majority must be reached. So today was not about that. Today was about actually set up a committee similar to the fact that even President Trump can survive an impeachment motion. But he had to appear before the committee. There had to be an investigation. And President Ramaphosa would be no different. He would have to go do the same. But on the second, it proves that we desperately need an electoral reform. Because without an electoral reform, you can't go out of your way and say MPs are accountable to their constituencies. They then are ultimately will always be accountable to the to the party's constitution, which in this instance is supreme above the constitution of the country, which is where, to me, that's the tragedy of today. So my response is on those two grounds. I really do believe that Parliament failed the people today. And as I say, there will never be an existence of a Section 89. That's what we've got to actually say to ourselves. In what mechanisms can we hold President Ramaphosa to account if he'll always depend on the majority and the defense of his party? And therefore, for the politics of this country, it means that President Ramaphosa will always be shielded from accountability from his party, and that the citizens of this country will never know what happens to their economy, what happens to load shedding, what happens to Phala Phala. All of these issues means they can always be defended for by the political party system.
Just in terms of not only the electoral system, but how South Africans are to view what Parliament's purpose is. If we're talking about perverted accountability here, we would expect that basic human beings of principles, of virtue, would understand that some things are quite simple. But there are those on President Ramaphosa's side who say, actually, the panel report said there may be a case to answer. So then there is that minutiae that people get bogged down to. But how do we choose leaders that are reflective of what we want if we're talking about values and principles and those institutions that will inculcate integrity?
No, I mean, ultimately, today shows that state capture is alive and well. Because how state capture begins is when you can capture a president, who after that you capture a parliament. And once you've got those institutions in play, it means nothing can ever be investigated. The second thing is that we've now made rules for President Ramaphosa. In future, let's assume, hypothetically, we get a president who commits an absolute crime where someone dies or something of that nature happens, whatever we might deem egregious enough. If they have the majority of their party, it means they will never be held accountable, even for a crime that is blatant. So to me, we fall into this trap that perhaps maybe the drafters of the Constitution in '94 recognized that maybe they wrote the Constitution with Nelson Mandela in mind and forgot that another president could come today and tell us that a swimming pool is a fire pool. Today we're making rules for one who is telling us that money at his house was just a sale of cattle, but not really, that in fact it was money, it was illegally to be in possession of US dollars to that level. It's the same motif. And therefore, to me, I think it demudes, it takes away the power of Parliament to hold the executive to account. It reduces rationality to majoritarianism, which means that so long as you have the numbers, you can tell any South African that a swimming pool is a fire pool and that there's no problem with Phala Phala because we can vote to say so. I always tell even my kids to say, if you go to a doctor and the doctor says, you need to have this investigated further, you can't come home and say, I'm going to vote about whether I take their opinion seriously or not.
Okay.
You then do take a further investigation.
Let's quickly move to another political or playing field, should I say. The footballers on Argentina have just scored a goal, so they're leading Croatia by 3-0. Who were you hoping to come out winners in this game, Mr. Maimane?
Well, I've been backing Argentina all the way, and I think they should hopefully win the whole World Cup, because I've now, as a family bet, I'm leading this issue. So I wish them well. But I'll be backing Morocco tomorrow night, because Africa must try.
Oh, we indeed must try to get a leg in. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Mmusi Maimane, Build One South Africa leader, sharing his views not only on football, but also what happened in Parliament earlier on.